In 2011, Rocky Mountain Construction opened New Texas Giant. This coaster was revolutionary for the time, as RMC found a new market in taking unpopular, outdated wooden coasters and modernizing them with smooth steel iBox track. But now it is 2026. New Texas Giant completed 15 seasons of operation, and RMC has slowly changed and developed their designs and layouts. The most recent RMC conversion projects look much different than their humble beginnings with New Texas Giant. In today's video, I'm going to use statistics as well as NoLimits 2 models of New Texas Giant and Wildcat's Revenge to compare how RMC approaches hybrid conversions. We will analyze how RMC changes the height, layout, and structure of old wooden coasters to create modern, award-winning rides. My name is Christian G Coasters, and if you've been enjoying the content on my channel, be sure to like and subscribe because it helps me out a lot. RMC's most popular product is the steel iBox coaster with 16 total coasters. 14 of these are conversions where RMC uses previous footers and structures from an existing roller coaster. These conversions are more affordable than a traditional brand new coaster, as footers can account for a large chunk of a new coaster's cost, oftentimes more than the cost of the supports and the track. Let's look at some differences between the original wooden coaster and the RMC conversion coaster that replaced them. We will look at the difference in height, length, speed, and captain coaster ranking. First, let's look at how much height RMC has added when making hybrid conversions. This chart shows the difference in height from the previous wooden coaster and the coaster RMC replaced it with. And we can see a clear trend. Early on, RMC barely added any height to the previous coaster, and some of the conversions were actually shorter than the original coaster. But around 2016 to 2018, there was a clear change in adding much more height to the original structure. The average height difference before 2018 was only 3 feet. Compare this to after 2018, and the average conversion had an additional 38 feet, which is a stark contrast. Now, Iron Gwazi is a bit of an outlier because it adds 101 feet to the original Gwazi, but even if we take Iron Gwazi out of the average, post-2018 RMCs still average 27.86 feet taller than the coasters they replaced. This is seen pretty clearly on New Texas Giant versus Wildcat's Revenge. Texas Giant only added 10 feet to the original structure, where Wildcat's Revenge is 34 feet taller and it uses a steel truss structure to make a whole new lift hill. Adding more height to the original coaster helps greatly with pacing. Prior to 2016, RMC hybrids did not have quite the same pacing as today's rides. Older RMCs are still great, don't get me wrong, but looking at New Texas Giant and how slowly it goes over the final hills versus Wildcat's Revenge, and there's a pretty clear difference. RMC has greatly improved the pacing of their coasters by adding more height to the previous coaster structure. Another thing to note is that steel coasters actually lose speed faster than a wooden coaster, and this is why rides like Twisted Cyclone removed an entire lap from the previous Georgia Cyclone. The original Texas Giant used to have a second helix around the lift hill, and New Texas Giant removed this and it only goes around the lift hill once. So this is why adding height is so important to have proper pacing on an RMC conversion. Next, let's look at how RMC changed the track length. A majority of RMC conversions are shorter than their predecessors, with Iron Rattler being reduced the most at 1,814 feet shorter than the original Rattler. Twisted Colossus has the highest increase in track length, but this is considering the fact that a single side of Colossus was 4,325 feet, and Twisted Colossus is using both sides and is 4,990 feet long. So you can either think of it as a 665 foot increase in length compared to a single side of the original coaster, but if you consider both sides, it would be a 3,660 foot decrease in length. So Twisted Colossus is both the RMC with the largest increase in track length and the largest decrease depending on how you look at it. But if you don't include Twisted Colossus, the next highest increase in length is Iron Gwazi at 567 feet longer. But again, this is only considering one side of Gwazi. Considering both sides of track length, Iron Gwazi is actually 2,941 feet shorter. So now that brings us to Wildcat's Revenge with an increase of 327 feet in track length. The racing and dueling coasters make this statistic up to interpretation. Personally, I think you should consider both sides of the racing coaster and use the total track length, since the park removed both sides and only installed one continuous roller coaster with less total track. Using this measurement, RMC makes their conversions an average of 715 feet shorter than their previous coaster. Next up is the speed. RMC conversions are typically faster than their previous coaster. The only exceptions are Twisted Colossus at 5 miles per hour slower, Wind Chaser at 3 miles per hour slower, and Twisted Cyclone has no difference in speed. Every other conversion is faster, with Iron Gwazi being the biggest difference in speed at 25 miles per hour faster than the original Gwazi. Finally, we have the Captain Coaster ranking. I saw Theme Park Crazy use this website in a video, and I think it's a really interesting way to get an idea about people's opinions on the quality of a roller coaster. So looking at Captain Coaster rankings, the previous coasters all have very low rankings, the lowest being Hurler at King's Dominion with a 22% score. Contrast this to the lowest ranking RMC being New Texas Giant at 92.8%, and it is clear that RMC is extremely successful at transforming unpopular wooden coasters. The highest ranked RMC is Steel Vengeance at 100%, and the most improved coaster is Twisted Timbers at 76.4% increase in rating. Now that we have some statistics to reference, let's visually look at how RMC changes their layouts using my NoLimits 2 models. I can even overlay the RMC conversion over the original wooden coaster to get a clear look at the difference in the layouts. Overall, modern RMC conversions do not follow the layout of the original coaster as closely as older RMCs did. Look at New Texas Giant. The hybrid version follows the path of the original almost exactly. The main difference is the removal of the second helix around the lift hill. Now let's look at Wildcat's Revenge. The layout follows a much different path. Instead of following the original Wildcat's first turnaround, Wildcat's Revenge takes this airtime hill. Then Wildcat's Revenge takes this sideways airtime hill in the same direction as this airtime hill, which was towards the end of the original Wildcat's layout. But then Wildcat's Revenge switches paths to Wildcat's second turnaround instead of going to the original final turnaround here. Wildcat's second turnaround is now taken in the opposite direction, as well as this 0G stall, which used to be this airtime hill. Wildcat's Revenge continues traveling in the opposite direction, using Wildcat's first turnaround for this wave turn. This airtime hill follows a completely new path, as Wildcat's Revenge takes this double down using the final brake run of the original Wildcat, where it is again going in the opposite direction. After this inversion, Wildcat's Revenge switches paths and starts to go in the same direction as the original first turnaround. Then these last hills into the brakes are a new path. To better visualize this, I color-coded Wildcat's Revenge's track. Green track shows where the coaster is following the same direction as the original Wildcat. Yellow track shows completely new sections that do not follow the original structure. And red track is where it is going in the opposite direction of the original Wildcat. Iron Gwazi also has a similar design approach. RMC did not try to replicate the original Gwazi like they did with New Texas Giant. Let's apply the same color coding to New Texas Giant. And we can see that the whole track is green. It follows the original Texas Giant layout exactly the same. Next, RMC now seems to prefer to build more of their own structure on hybrid conversions. Look at this picture of New Texas Giant from its opening season, and you can see a difference in color between the new and old structure. They had to build new structure on this first airtime hill since it's taller than the valley of the original Texas Giant. But all the other structure in this picture is original. Look at Wildcat's Revenge in contrast. The main areas they kept the original structure was here on the underflip. There are some other spots where you can see the original structure, but RMC chose to mostly build a completely new structure. The 0G stall is new structure even though it closely follows this airtime hill on the original Wildcat, They only reused this small section of supports here. Why did RMC decide to make their own structures? Doesn't that defeat the purpose of saving money and using the existing structure? The reason I think RMC has taken this direction is because of Steel Vengeance. To make a long story short, Steel Vengeance had a lot of structural issues when it opened, mainly caused by the heavier swing axle trains and more intense elements than previous RMC designs. The turn by the lift hill was the most problematic part. Look at how much new structure was added, barely any really. Compare this to Wildcat's Revenge's second turnaround, and you can see there was a lot of structure they could have used, but they decided to build a lot of new supports. So to summarize, I think there are three main changes in RMC's designs over the years. They prefer to build taller coasters, their layouts do not follow the original coaster layouts as closely, and they are choosing to build more of their own structure rather than reuse the old ride structure. So what will future RMCs look like? Well, Gwazi and Wildcat's Revenge are the only two conversions with truss structures and layouts that follow a much different path than the original. We will have to wait and see if the next conversion will follow this new trend, but it seems that future conversions could prioritize reusing footers rather than the structure. And I think the use of a truss structure will depend on the coaster being converted, and if a park wants their RMC conversion to have more height and speed than the original coaster. If a park is looking for a smaller scale RMC like Twisted Cyclone, then I don't think a truss structure is necessary. So we will have to wait and see if Iron Gwazi and Wildcat's Revenge show the true future of RMC conversions. I think it's actually interesting to go back and see what I predicted an RMC conversion of Wildcat would look like back in 2017. My prediction resembles Joker at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom, where the lift hill is at the exact same spot of the original and the conversion follows the original path of Wildcat. I really do think this is what Wildcat's Revenge would have looked like if it opened in 2017, so I'm glad Hershey Park decided to wait to convert Wildcat once RMC continued to perfect their hybrid layouts, because Wildcat's Revenge is a masterpiece. Same with Iron Gwazi. In 2018, I predicted Gwazi would remain a dueling coaster and become a Mobius loop like Twisted Colossus. One more thing to note is Airy Force 1 and Wildcat's Revenge were designed by Joe Draves. Before this, all the designs were done by Alan Schilke. Personally, I've ridden Wildcat's Revenge, Steel Vengeance, and Twisted Timbers, and there is a bit of a different feel between the Joe Draves layouts and the Alan Schilke layouts. But the Steel iBox coaster as a whole is a very similar experience between the Alan Schilke designs and the Joe Draves designs. So I hope this video made you think a little differently about RMC hybrid conversions. The design of Iron Gwazi and Wildcat's Revenge take a much different approach from previous hybrid coasters. What do you think will be the next roller coaster to get RMC'd? I would love to hear your thoughts and comments down below. I'm Christian G Coasters, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again in the next video.